Abandoned qualities and qualities of fruition. One who is perfect in view, Diti Sampanna, has abandoned 6 things. He has abandoned fixed personality view, doubt, attachment to rules and vows, lust that leads to ruin, anger that leads to ruin, and delusion that leads to ruin. It is impossible that one perfect in view could give rise to these 6 things. There are these 6 impossibilities, abhaya patana. It is impossible that one who is perfect in view will live disrespectfully and without regard for the teacher, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the training. It is impossible that he will cling to that which should not be clung to. It is impossible that he will give rise to an 8th birth. There are also these 6 impossibilities. It is impossible that one who is perfect in view will believe that any conditioned phenomenon is permanent, is essentially pleasurable, and is a self. It is impossible that he will perform a heinous crime, an antariya karma, that he will believe purity is gained through auspicious rituals, that he will seek one truly worthy of offerings, dakinaya, outside of this teaching. There are also these 6 impossibilities. It is impossible that one who is perfect in view will perform matricide, will perform patricide, will kill an arahant, will with evil intents draw the blood of the Tathagata, will split the Sangha, will follow another teacher. There are also these 6 impossibilities. It is impossible that one who is perfect in view will believe that pleasure and pain are self-created, are created by an external agent, are both self-created and created by an eternal agent, that pleasure and pain arise randomly, not self-created, arise randomly, not created by an external agent, arise randomly, neither self-created nor created by an external agent. And what is the cause for this non-belief? One perfect in view clearly sees both cause and the produced effect. One who can abandon these 5 qualities is capable of realizing stream entry, selfishness in regard to one's dwelling, selfishness in regard to one's family, selfishness in regard to one's wealth, selfishness in regard to one's social standing, and selfishness in regard to truth. Shortly before the first recitation after the Buddha's death, 499 arahants were selected to attend along with Venerable Ananda, who was still a stream enterer. He was invited because he had spent a long time learning the Dhamma Vinaya directly from the Buddha, and because he was a stream enterer. It is not possible that he, Venerable Ananda, could be biased due to likes, dislikes, delusion or fear. Mahanama, the Sakyan, approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said to him, "Venerable Sir, this city of Kapilavatthu is rich and prosperous, populous, crowded, with congested roads. In the evening, when I am entering Kapilavatthu after visiting the Blessed One, by the bhikkhus who are dear to the heart, I come across a bustle of elephants, horses, chariots, carts and people. On that occasion my mindfulness regarding the Buddha becomes muddled. My mindfulness regarding the Dhamma becomes muddled. My mindfulness regarding the Sangha becomes muddled. The thought then occurs to me, if at this moment I should die, what would be my destination? What would be my future state? Abhi Samparaya. Don't be afraid, Mahanama. Don't be afraid, Mahanama. Your death will not be a bad one. Your passing away will not be a bad one. When a person's mind has been refined over a long time by faith, conduct, learning, generosity and wisdom, his body, consisting of form, composed of the four elements, born from mother and father, built up from rice and pudding, requiring scrubbing and massaging, subject to impermanence, to breaking apart and dispersal, is devoured by crows, vultures, hawks, dogs, jackals, and various creatures. But his mind, refined over a long time by faith, conduct, learning, generosity and wisdom, that elevates and reaches distinction. Do not be afraid, Mahanama. Do not be afraid, Mahanama. Your death will not be a bad one. Your passing away will not be a bad one. The noble disciple who possesses four things, inclines towards Nibbana, is devoted to Nibbana. There are these 6 blessings in realizing the fruit of Srimantri. One is firm in the good Dhamma. One is unable to fall back. One's suffering is limited. One is endowed with exceptional knowledge. One has clearly seen into causes and the effects of causes. The person who is accomplished in view, freed from the vast plane of misery, understands as it really is. This is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the end of suffering. This is the path leading to the end of suffering. Therefore you should endeavour to understand as it really is. This is suffering. This is the path leading to the end of suffering. Bhikkhus, suppose that the great ocean would dry up and be destroyed except for 2 or 3 drops of water. What do you think? Which is more, the water in the great ocean that has dried up and been destroyed, or the 2 or 3 drops that remain? Venerable Sir, the water in the great ocean that has dried up and been destroyed is more. The 2 or 3 drops of water that remain are trifling. They do not amount to 100th part, or 1,000th part, or 100,000th part of the water in the great ocean that has dried up and been destroyed. So too, bhikkhus, for a noble disciple, a person accomplished in view who has reached the truth, the suffering that has been destroyed and eliminated is more, while that which remains is trifling. It does not amount to 100th part, or 1,000th part, or 100,000 part, as there is a maximum of 7 more lives. Of such great benefit is the realization of the Dhamma. Of such great benefit is it to obtain the Dhamma-eye. The bliss of worldly pleasures and the bliss of heaven equal not 1/16 of the bliss of craving's end. Bhikkhus, suppose that a man would place 7 stones the size of a mung beans next to Mount Sineru. What do you think? Which is more, the 7 stones the size of a mung beans placed by that man, or Mount Sineru? Venerable Sir, Mount Sineru is more. So too, bhikkhus, the extraordinary achievements of ascetics, Brahmins, wanderers and followers of other sects do not amount to 100th part, or 1,000th part, or 100,000th part of the achievement of a noble disciple, a person accomplished in view. So great an achievement is a person accomplished in view, so great in direct knowledge. Attributes and conduct before attaining Srimantri. Compare the qualities here of faith, moral conduct, generosity and wisdom with these same qualities described earlier in the passages directly relating to stream enterers. One in whom the four factors of stream entry are completely and totally absent is an outsider, one who stands among the worldlings. King Mahanama, Venerable Sir, in what way is one a lay follower? Buddha. When one has gone for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, one is then a lay follower. Mahanama. In what way, Venerable Sir, is a lay follower accomplished in moral conduct? Buddha. When a lay follower abstains from the destruction of life, from taking what is not given, from sexual misconduct, from false speech, from wines, liquor and intoxicants that are a basis for negligence, the lay follower is accomplished in moral conduct. Mahanama. In what way, Venerable Sir, is a lay follower accomplished in faith? Buddha. Here a lay follower is a person of faith. He has faith in the enlightenment of the Tathagata. Thus, the Blessed One is an Arahant, the Awakened One, the Blessed One. In that way a lay follower is accomplished in faith. Mahanama. In what way, Venerable Sir, is a lay follower accomplished in generosity? Buddha. Here a lay follower dwells at home devoid of the stain of stinginess, delighting in giving and sharing. In that way a lay follower is accomplished in generosity. Mahanama. In what way, Venerable Sir, is a lay follower accomplished in wisdom? Buddha. Here a noble disciple is wise. He possesses wisdom that penetrates the truth, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. In that way a lay follower is accomplished in wisdom. Let us have another look at faith devotees, Sada Nu Sari, and truth devotees, Dhamma Nu Sari, who rank just below stream enterers. Because the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind and the six sense objects, the six kinds of consciousness, the five aggregates, is impermanent, changing, becoming otherwise. One who trusts these teachings and is devoted to them is thus called a faith devotee. One for whom these teachings are accepted after being investigated to a sufficient degree with wisdom is called a truth devotee. There is another group of four factors of stream entry, but here, rather than referring to the qualities of a stream enterer, they are modes of spiritual practice that lead to stream entry. Buddha. Sariputta, this is said, a factor for stream entry. What now is a factor for stream entry? Sariputta. Association with superior persons, Saparisa Samsewa, is a factor for stream entry. Hearing the teachings of superior persons, Sadhamma Savana, is a factor for stream entry. Proper reflection, Yoniso Manasikara, is a factor for stream entry. A comprehensive spiritual practice, Dhamma Nu Dhamma Pati Pati, is a factor for stream entry. Because there are these four factors for stream entry: association with superior persons, hearing the teachings of superior persons, proper reflection, and a comprehensive spiritual practice. Because these four things, when developed and cultivated, lead to the realization of the fruit of stream entry. What for? Association with superior persons, hearing the teachings of superior persons, proper reflection, and a comprehensive spiritual practice. These four qualities lead not only to stream entry, but to all levels of wisdom, ending in the realization of arahantship. They may be referred to by many other names, but because the Buddha emphasized them in this context, they are called factors for stream entry. Additional points on the attributes of stream enterers. Let us look more closely at the 5 qualities of faith, moral conduct, learning, generosity and wisdom, which incorporate the 4 factors of stream entry, Sota, Pati, Yanga. The Buddha emphasized these qualities and used them as benchmarks for progress in relation to noble disciples, both before the realization of stream entry and after. Special attention should be given to the quality of faith. Why did the Buddha mention faith every time he discussed this stage of practice, even though Buddhism considers wisdom to be the supreme quality for spiritual development? These 5 qualities are referred to as the 5 accomplishments, Sampada, the 5 treasures, Dana, and the 5 qualities of growth, Vadi. 1. Faith, Sada, trust and conviction resulting from reasoned and wise contemplation. There are 3 aspects to faith. A. Faith in the Buddha. The existence of the Buddha is proof that through their own efforts and by mindfulness and wisdom, human beings are able to realize the highest truth. Human beings can be trained and cultivated both in regards to proper conduct, vis-a-vis their external environment, and in regards to spiritual qualities. They are able to develop wisdom to the point that they escape from the oppression by mental defilement and make an end of suffering, realizing supreme deliverance. With this realization, human beings become excellent and self-reliant. They need not petition a divinity, example Devas, Mara or Brahma, to intercede on their behalf. By recognizing the exceptional virtues of the Buddha, who has reached this realization, a person with faith should cultivate these virtues in him or herself and try to reach the truth that the Buddha has made known. B. Faith in the Dhamma, the truth or the highest good, which the Buddha discovered and revealed. This truth is stable, certain, and autonomous. It is a natural law of cause and effect. It does not rely on the appearance of a Buddha. It is neutral and impartial to all beings. It invites investigation and spiritual practice. Every person who has developed himself adequately and has sufficient wisdom can realize this truth. This realization leads to liberation and the end of suffering. C. Faith in the Sangha, the model community. This community acts as proof that every person has the potential to realize the highest truth realized by the Buddha. The community only comes into existence, however, when individuals allow the truth to manifest through spiritual practice. This community is comprised of people with different levels of maturity and development, but is unified by the adherence to the same standards. They have the Dhamma as their focus and standard of measurement, and they are the vessels through which the Dhamma manifests. One should treasure and participate in the virtue of this community, because the Sangha acts more than any other community to preserve the Dhamma in the world. It is the source for goodness and well-being to spread in the world. The 3 aspects of faith are a trust that truth, a natural law of cause and effect, exists. Human beings are capable of realizing this truth, and there are exceptional people who have reached this truth and share it with others. Those who have confidence in this truth and in the human potential to realize it will strive to generate the results, especially through proper action. They believe in the causal link between action and the fruits of action, and this belief leads to steadfast ethical behavior and a solid understanding. They do not rely primarily on external forces for help, and they trust that together people can build a virtuous or ideal community, which is comprised of individuals who have trained themselves and realized the truth of the Buddha. By reflecting on causality, a person has a firm conviction that the Buddha was truly awakened, that his teachings accord with the truth, and that it is of utmost benefit to join the community of enlightened disciples who have followed this teaching. 2. Moral conduct, sila. A moral code, the entire system of conduct covering both private behavior and one's interaction with society through physical actions and speech, including one's livelihood. This code of conduct is established to assist in the attainment of the highest good. Its aim is to prevent unskillful actions and promote good actions by teaching people to see the relationship between their deeds and their environment. It brings about stability, both personal and social, and is a foundation for higher spiritual practice. It helps to perfect physical and verbal conduct and emphasizes harmonious coexistence. Such a harmonious social environment allows each individual to live at peace and to train themselves in order to reach higher states of realization. For the general public, the basic code of conduct that supports well-being is the 5 precepts: to not violate living creatures, to not violate others' property, to not violate loving relationships, to not violate truth by speaking falsely or aggressively, and to not impair mindfulness and clear comprehension, sampajana, by using addictive substances. Certain communities establish more intricate and refined codes of conduct. For example, the 8 precepts, the 10 precepts, and the 227 precepts for an ordered discipline, and to reach the goal of that specific community. There are several attributes of Buddhist morality. A. It creates a conducive external environment for spiritual practice leading to the highest goal. B. It promotes peace and harmony within a community so that each individual can pursue his or her activities in comfort. And C. The restraint of moral conduct leads to self-discipline and a reduction of mental impurity. Moral conduct makes a person receptive to wholesome qualities. In particular, it is a basis for concentration. Although there are levels of moral conduct higher than the 5 precepts, all desirable codes of conduct required for Dhamma practice, referred to as conduct cherished by the noble ones, Arya Siddha, share the same essence and have the same criteria. They are followed neither out of desire for pleasurable rewards, nor out of attachment, nor out of fixed views on morality, nor by blindly following social customs. They are followed by understanding the true purpose of moral precepts. For lay Buddhists who have this proper perspective, observing the 5 precepts is enough to lead to stream entry. 3. Learning, sutta, that which is heard, knowledge gained from listening, reading, studying, news media, or any other sources, knowledge of the noble teachings, Arya Dhamma, the teachings of enlightened beings which reveal the highest way of life and the path to awakening, knowledge gained for careers and general activities in the world, for example in the arts and sciences, is insufficient to become a noble disciple. Worldly knowledge varies between different individuals and it is not always harmless. Though it is developed to solve problems and to generate happiness, often it has opposite desired effect, and creates all sorts of complications. Therefore, it is not the same as the learning referred to here. The knowledge of a noble disciple is always beneficial. It is the knowledge that every person needs to lead a good life. It enables a person to apply professional knowledge to promote personal and social well-being. It prevents harm and solves problems in a truly effective way. And most importantly, it alone can lead an ordinary person to become enlightened. For professional knowledge to be an effective tool for solving problems, it must be aligned with the knowledge of the noble teachings. All these forms of knowledge, however, including the knowledge of noble teachings, resemble at first a storeroom containing raw materials. The knowledge has not yet been applied to truly settle one's affairs. After acquiring knowledge, a person assimilates it and makes it his own, as a particular view or belief. But for the knowledge to be truly effective, it must become an instrument for wisdom, at which point it develops into analytical and discriminative knowledge, and is integrated into systematic, comprehensive practice. Dhamma nu Dhamma pati pati. 4. Generosity, kagga. True giving, outward relinquishment by giving material things, and inward relinquishment by abandoning greed, an absence of stinginess. Noble disciples do not seek reward, material gain, prestige, happiness, or heaven in exchange for their gifts. The expression in the suttas, delighting in giving and sharing, dana samvibhagarata, indicates that noble disciples derive joy from the very act of giving. They do not experience the suffering or disappointment from such thoughts as, I have given but received nothing in return. Noble disciples are endowed with loving kindness and compassion. Without the urge to acquire or to possess, the heart becomes expansive and sympathy for others arises. One clearly sees other people's hardship and suffering, and naturally inclines to generosity. One finds joy in giving by alleviating others' suffering and making them happy. The goodness in the act of giving becomes the reward. By giving, the world becomes a happier place. In addition, generosity purifies the heart, reduces mental impurities, and leads to a person closer to the goal of Buddhism. As Venerable Sariputta said, wise persons do not give gifts for worldly happiness, nor do they give gifts for a better rebirth. Wise persons give gifts to remove defilement, to reach the state of no renewed existence. Besides generous assistance in a wider context, noble disciples are generous with their fellow companions. They willingly relinquish their personal belongings for public consumption to benefit the virtuous members of their community. Because noble disciples are superior persons, sapurisa, they give the gifts of a good person, sapurisa dana. One of these qualities is to give respectfully. A noble disciple values the recipient, the gift, and the act of giving. He gives willingly and without resentment, no matter how low the recipient's social standing. He does not hold the person in contempt, acting with kindness and the intention to help. 5. Wisdom, panya. Comprehensive knowledge, clear knowing, discriminative knowledge, reasoned analysis. A noble disciple distinguishes between true and false, good and bad, right and wrong, appropriate and inappropriate, benefit and harm. It is a practical knowledge. A person understands causality and understands how to relate to conditions in order to solve problems. This knowledge applies to specifically to human suffering. It is used to alleviate suffering and to give a good life. There are many ways to refer to this wisdom, including knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, knowledge of dependent origination, and knowledge free from the five hindrances, nirvana. The definition of the accomplishment of wisdom, panya sampada, as an attribute of a noble disciple is wisdom that penetrates arising and passing away, which is noble and pierces defilement, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. No matter what level of expertise a person has in worldly knowledge, as a prominent politician, brilliant businessman, clever inventor, or skilled researcher, for example, the knowledge of a noble disciple is indispensable for every person in solving life's problems and living honorably. Learning sutta can be a conditioning factor for wisdom. It provides information and expands a person's understanding. It is not only Dhamma learning that supports wisdom. Worldly knowledge, especially life experience, can foster an understanding of the truth. A person skilled in reflection, yoniso manasikara, gains an understanding of the world and of life from applying technical or professional knowledge. The decisive factor for spiritual progress, however, is wisdom. Some people are highly educated but are unable to reflect. They therefore do not grow wise and do not truly benefit from their knowledge. Some people have only a meagre level of formal education but are very wise. Their wise reflection enables them to solve problems. For a wise person, increased knowledge of any kind is used to their advantage. Because a wise person can still prosper despite a shortage of formal learning, there are many occasions where the number of attributes of noble disciples is reduced from 5 to 4, leaving faith, conduct, generosity, and wisdom. Wisdom fulfills not only learning sutta, it also validates all the other factors of a noble disciple. Wisdom ensures that faith is correct, not erring towards gullibility. Wisdom leads to suitable moral conduct, which is praised by awakened beings and free from clinging to rules and practices. Wisdom brings about true relinquishment, because as long as one does not truly understand the world and phenomena, and one has not discovered a more refined happiness, it is natural that one takes pleasure in sensuality. With a lack of wisdom, it is difficult to avoid being preoccupied by worldly pleasures, and to be generous without wishing for some form of sense pleasure or other reward. Wisdom thus unites the other factors. It is the essential factor of a noble disciple, and is the aim of each successive level of spiritual practice. To sum up, there are 4 primary virtues of a noble disciple. 1. Saddha, faith in the wisdom, virtue, and perseverance of human beings. These qualities promote a realization of the truth and the highest good as taught by the Buddha and his disciples. This faith fosters the building of a virtuous society, established on principles of truth. 2. Sila, self-discipline which leads to an appropriate behavior and relationship to others and to one's environment. This conduct supports the blossoming of virtue in an individual and fosters social harmony. 3. Kaga, relinquishment, which reduces selfishness and prepares a person to assist others. 4. Panya, wisdom, penetrative knowledge of things as they truly are, as following laws of nature, as arising and passing away according to causes and conditions. This knowledge, accompanied by a free mind, promotes a proper relationship to things and an appropriate, balanced conduct. A person then knows how to apply or develop the other virtues in a suitable way. Learning sutta, acquired by any form, by instruction, encouragement, advice, or study, supports the development of the other virtues and brings about greater success. But the required amount of learning and the level of success depends on a person's ability to reflect with wisdom. Let us return to the first virtue of faith, saddha, and examine how it is a crucial factor at the beginning of spiritual practice. Normally, faith is divided into 3 groups: faith in the Buddha, faith in the Dhamma, and faith in the Sangha. Occasionally a single precise definition is presented, especially when describing the faith of a noble disciple before the realization of stream entry. A person has faith in the enlightenment of the Tathagata, thus the Blessed One is an Arahant, the awakened one. This form of faith is called faith in the Tathagata's awakening, Tathagata Bodhisattva. It is faith in the wisdom of the Buddha, who is considered the archetype, representative, or pioneer for all human beings. The Buddha's awakening confirms that all human beings are capable of realizing the truth and reaching the highest good through mindfulness, wisdom, and disciplined effort. The Buddha compared himself to a baby chick who is the first to peck its way through the eggshell of ignorance and to discover of an ancient path, who reveals this path to humanity. Faith in the Buddha's awakening is thus equivalent to faith in the capability and wisdom of human beings. Or more succinctly, it is self-confidence or faith in oneself. This confidence is not selfish belief or pride, but rather confidence in being human, or an objective trust in humanity. One believes in the human potential for wisdom, that every person can reach the highest goal through spiritual training and satisfy the greatest of human aspirations. The Buddha is the symbol of self-belief. He was the first person to assert this human potential and the first person not to attribute enlightenment to a divine or supernatural power. Effectively, faith in the Buddha's awakening encompasses faith in the Triple Gem. There is trust that human beings can develop wisdom to the point of resolving even the most refined difficulties in the heart, and they are able to reach the highest liberation and complete happiness, just as the Buddha was able to accomplish. There is trust that these principles of practice and the highest goal are aspects of truth based on natural laws, and there is trust that there are people who have reached this goal, who comprise a noble community, have verified the truth, propagate the Dhamma, spread blessings, and are fully prepared to assist others in joining this noble community. Although Buddhism advocates wisdom, faith is an essential quality at the beginning stages of practice. Before a person realizes his or her potential and perfects wisdom. Faith here is different from what is commonly understood and should not be mistaken for blind faith. It is faith in wisdom, linked with wisdom, and leads to wisdom. There are two important aspects to faith in the Triple Gem, or to faith in the Buddha's awakening. First, the entire teaching in Buddhism, either of the highest goal or of modes of practice, rests on the principle that human beings are capable of following in the Buddha's footsteps and realizing the truth through their own effort and wisdom. There exists no external supreme source of power surpassing that of human beings. If this principle were to be false, then the entire Buddhist system of practice and the stated goal would be meaningless and void. Second, if a Buddhist disciple does not have trust in this human potential, he will be unable to progress along the path of Buddhism. How would he be able to devote himself to practice? In fact, he would not be a true disciple of the Buddha. Faith in the Buddha's awakening is thus an essential quality for a Buddhist. Stream entry is a valid goal for Buddhist practitioners, and reaching this essential stage of awakening should be encouraged. The related factors of faith, conduct, learning, generosity, and wisdom, which the Buddha repeatedly taught, and when developed can be considered equivalent to stream entry, should also be emphasized. These 5 factors can be developed gradually, both before the realization of stream entry and after, and they are relevant to the present time. Today's society is in need of faith that is based on reason, not credulity, and of trust in the human potential for reaching the highest good. Society requires an understanding of the true spirit of moral conduct as connected to other spiritual qualities. This conduct then guides and protects society. In today's society, there is an abundance of learning and a profusion of information, but it often appears to create increased confusion and difficulty for people. Society requires an education in noble principles that reveals the essential meaning of life and points out ways of disentanglement from problems. Such learning leads to self-sufficiency and suitable action. Today's society faces increasingly dire economic problems, which require self-sacrifice, generosity, and mutual assistance coming from a pure heart. The earth no longer has the resources to sustain people's unbridled greed. People need to discover the happiness that comes from giving and sharing, and that leads to social harmony. Contemporary society is full of people who take pride in their intelligence because they have received a formal education. They are unable to accomplish extraordinary things. They are able to accomplish extraordinary things and wield a certain power over nature and the environment. People have become expert at worldly knowledge to the extent that their power is exceptional. But because they lack transcendent wisdom, they have only begun to penetrate the mysteries of the universe. As a result of pride, people risk falling into a pit created by their own intelligence. They meet with obstruction on the physical level and frustration in their hearts. To solve these problems, people require noble wisdom. Looking at the state of the world today and the widespread behavior of people, there are 2 outstanding qualities of a stream enterer that should be emphasized as guidelines for living. First, stream enterers have a firm understanding of the law of cause and effect. Their trust in wisdom is adequately strong to expect successful results from actions based on mindfulness and balanced effort and in line with causality. They do not rely on fate or petition a supernatural force from outside to intercede on their behalf. However, because their wisdom is not yet complete, their confidence is not self-sustaining. They still rely on someone else who has reached the truth and leads the way. This faith in the Buddha's awakening, or faith in the Triple Gem, this is the highest and purest level of faith. Thereafter, wisdom is perfected and replaces faith. The wisdom of stream enterers is not yet absolute. The wisdom is reinforced by faith. Second, stream enterers are firmly established on the path to awakening. Their understanding of the world is sufficient to not be influenced by defilement, nor to overrate worldly conditions, loka dhamma. They have begun to experience transcendent joy and freedom, which begins about an appreciation of the truth. They develop chanda, enthusiasm and love for truth. They desire truth so much that there is no chance of them returning to a fascination with material pleasures. Unlike ordinary people, they seek no reward of material gain, honour, fame, praise, pleasure, or heaven. From their virtuous conduct, sila, from acts of generosity, kaga, their moral conduct is steadfast. They are not discouraged if they do not reap these aforementioned rewards. This Dhammapada verse illustrates the life of a stream enterer. Fear-stricken people in large numbers take refuge in mountains, forests, and sacred groves and trees, but no such refuge is safe, no such refuge is supreme. Not by restoring to such a refuge is one freed from all misery. One who goes for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, one who sees clearly with wisdom, suffering, the origin of suffering, the transcendence of suffering, and the Noble Eightfold Path, leading to the end of suffering. This indeed is a safe refuge. This indeed is the refuge supreme. By reaching such a refuge, one is freed from all misery. Let us return to the Buddha's frequent teachings. Bhikkhus, those for whom you have compassion, and those who are receptive, whether friends or colleagues, relatives or kinsmen, these you should exhort, settle and establish in the four factors of stream entry. Leaders of a family, an organisation or a business who really deserve the title of leader and fulfil their responsibility are able to foster the five qualities of stream entry in their relatives, dependents and employees. Supported by the Himalayas, a great tree grows in these five growths. It grows in branches and leaves, in inner bark and outer bark, in sapwood and in hardwood. So too, supported by a devout family leader, members of a family grow in these five growths. They grow in faith, conduct, learning, generosity and wisdom. Besides encouraging general assistance to family and friends, the Buddha gave a specific teaching concerning the factors of stream entry in reference to repaying the goodness of one's parents. I declare, O monks, that there are two persons whose goodness it is difficult to repay. What two? One's mother and father. Even if one were to carry one's mother on one shoulder and one's father on the other, attending to them until one reached the age of a centurion, reached the age of 100 years, and if one were to care for them by kneading, massaging and bathing, and they would even void their excrements there, even by that one would not do right by one's parents, one would not repay them. Even if one were to establish one's parents as the supreme lords and rulers over this earth, rich in the seven treasures, one would not do right by one's parents, one would not repay them. What is the reason for this? Parents have been of great service to their children. They have nurtured, fed, and introduced them to the world. But one who encourages his unbelieving parents, settles and establishes them in faith. Who encourages his immoral parents, settles and establishes them in moral conduct. Who encourages his stingy parents, settles and establishes them in generosity. Who encourages his ignorant parents, settles and establishes them in wisdom. Such a one does right by his parents. He repays them